Monster Hunter games have proven to be a huge hit in their native Japan, but not so much on American shores. The hunter-gatherer instinct does not appear to be strong amongst players on this side of the Pacific. But those who like it a lot. What Monster Hunter's American audience lacks in numbers, it makes up for in loyalty, which is why it's no surprise that this second portable Monster Hunter game is making its way across the pond. A gripping story has never been the point of the Monster Hunter games, inasmuch as it's never really been important in titles like World of Warcraft or EverQuest. Yes, particular plot elements do rear their heads from time to time, but almost exclusively to drive another particular mission, not as another step on the way to some grand conclusion. The beginning of Monster Hunter conveniently kills any importance of the plot by dropping your character on his ass from a high cliff, rendering him unconscious. As the game starts, he or she wakes up in a village, conveniently enough the very village they were traveling to, with amnesia. All that matters from this point on is that you complete missions. And that's about it. The entire structure of Monster Hunter Freedom 2 is heavily based on massively multiplayer RPGs, so it stands to reason that the story follows suit. Considering Monster Hunter attempts to emulate an MMO, it's really strange that the only multiplayer option to be found in Freedom 2 is 4-player wireless play. That means no internet play. It's a real shame. That being said, there are still over 200 multiplayer quests to partake in should you find other fans of the game to play with. That, along with 100 single-player missions, downloadable quests, and various minigames should be enough to keep fans of the game playing for hundreds of hours or more, especially since there are a couple thousand different weapons and armor to create with the items found on said missions. One other thing veteran hunters will really appreciate is the new background loading option, which preloads areas based on what direction you're moving in and where you've been. The ridiculously long load times of Monster Hunter Freedom 2's predecessor are a thing of the past. Gameplay remains the same as in the last Monster Hunter on PSP. You go out on one mission after another with various objectives to fill. Kill a certain number of monsters, deliver a particular item to someone, carve up and cook monster meat, destroy something within a certain time limit. The missions aren't incredibly varied, and folks who played the last game will find everything feels quite familiar. The overarching goal is basically to harvest everything you can in your quest to earn enough cash and items to build the sweetest, rarest gear possible. That item you picked up may just work as the handle for your next sword. But harvesting is even required for survival. Go into a really cold area, and you'll want to have hot drinks available to keep yourself warm. Oh, and carve as much meat as you can from the carcass of each monster you slay in order to keep your stamina up. Combat is all done in real time, but what keeps Monster Hunter's basic goal of monster slaying fresh is the sheer variety of beasties you'll be stalking. There are dozens of monster types, and right and wrong ways to approach many of them. It's not always as easy as running in, swinging that sword a few times, and then collecting the booty. Control-wise, Freedom 2 takes a bit of getting used to. It's not that the controls are bad, but just that the multiple button combinations can get confusing at first. Tapping the L button will bring up your quick menu, while holding it and pressing attack will perform a focused attack. Tapping the square button while your weapon is drawn will put it away. But tapping it while your weapon is away will use whichever item you've readied through the menu. It sounds overwhelming, and it is a bit at first, but within an hour you'll find your ratio of mistaken button commands dropping rapidly. And considering that Capcom is trying to map all the commands of an MMO to a handheld, it's an admirable effort. Monster Hunter Freedom 2 is a very good-looking game for the PSP. Somehow, Capcom has managed to squeeze relatively huge levels into the game, all the while featuring multiple characters with a level of detail you don't usually see on the system. Almost overshadowing the visuals is the fact that the game doesn't take itself too seriously, which when you're going to spend dozens of hours grinding away at something is a nice touch. Everything from the writing, which suffers from a few spelling issues but is genuinely funny, to the characters, right down to the ridiculous tune that plays as you're cooking meat, is very lighthearted. Monster Hunter Freedom 2 is more of the same, sure, but considering how much more fans are getting, that's hardly a knock against the game. And even though games of this type almost require internet capability, there's plenty of grinding to be done, and you'll get a lot of playtime for your dollar, provided it's your cup of tea.